अपादमौलिपर्यन्तां गुरूणामाकृतिं स्मरेति न विघ्नप्रणश्यन्ति सिद्धन्ति च मनोरथः लक्ष्मीं तनोतु नितरामितरानपेक्षमङ्घ्रित्वयं निगमशाकिशिखा प्रवालम् ऐरम्बमम्बुरुहणपरचौर्यनिग्रहविघ्नाद्रिभेदशतधारधुरन्धरन्नः सर्वेषां स्वागतम्. This is the Bhavata session for the 47th shloka. And since we have seen the 47th shloka, it goes on to certain sense of dissolution of one's conscious into the greater being. So they're trying to understand why we are doing that. We need to understand our concept of Trinity. So why did we evolve into the more manifested form of reaching out to the creator that way? So I may have mentioned it before itself, but this will try to explore the concept of Trinity over here, trying to understand why we have them, or rather, what are they exactly. So when we try to understand the evolution of the Vedic thought, we see that pre-creation, before creation takes place, we cannot, there is explanation given to what they are in the Vedas. I have already mentioned the Hiranyagarbha Sutta and then Nasteya Sutta and all those things, but there is no validation of those forms of creation or their state that came about before creation itself. We can only validate what are existing. When we are talking about creation, we are specifically talking about creation that we can understand. We are thinking there isn't life, but what we are trying to indicate is that there is no life that we can understand. That means, what do we understand? We understand life as in somebody who can breathe, somebody who is dependent on water, somebody who is like us, has a certain form that we can understand, that we can comprehend, etc., etc., like in shapes, in sizes, like that. But there can be existence beyond these forms. That is, if we go towards Nyaya and all those things, it is mentioned that when the five elements, the Pancha Mahabhutas, in different proportions, have different forms of existence. That is, we are Prithvi, and therefore we have our Sharira is Parthiva, and therefore we are in forms, we are in certain, dense capacity that can be put into forms. But when there is manipulation of that proportions of the Pancha Mahabhutas, where there is, let us for example take Vayu, when there is too much of Vayu Tattva as compared to Prithvi or Apa or Tejas, etc., then Akasha, then we obviously, our form is in a certain, it is going to be existent in a way that cannot exist on this earth. Therefore, it has to exist in some other plane where the Sayoga of that element is more, Vayuloka, that we have conceptualized it as Vayuloka. In the same way, if there is Tejas Sayoga more than Prithvi or Vayu or Apa, then it gives rise to a certain form of existence that can only sustain on Aditya Loka. Like that, we have we need to understand that when we say pre-creation, it means we were not there. Something else existed maybe before that, but we were not there, or anything that we can understand wasn't there. There was something over there. So this form of understanding is what is going to later lend to that concept of cyclical sustenance. Life is cyclical in a way. So when we talk about this Trinity, we know that there was primordial matter. That primordial matter got manipulated into forms because of energy. But it needn't necessarily be that any energy, Chaitanya, that came in contact with the Prakriti led to only our existence. We are giving explanation to our existence. That is, there is Mahat, there is general Mahat. We need Mahat for bringing about Ahankara. We need Ahankara to bring about discrimination. We need the same discriminatory powers to understand that certain kind of energy can be processed only by certain kind of data can only be processed by certain kind. So therefore, we make special tanmatras. Then we have special the organs, that is the indriyas, just to process them. So like that, discriminatory power is helping us. Then that led to further, like that, we are explaining creation that has led to our creation. It needn't necessarily be that whatever we are saying is the only form of life or the only evolution that has come about. Like for example, when we um, talk about mud, clay. Now, what is happening? We are pouring water into that, thinking that it is going to come into a consistency from which I can make a pot, because pot is something I can understand. I know that pot comes like this. I know it is meant for like this, etc., etc., etc. So therefore, I'm using water. I'm pouring water into it to bring it into certain consistency with which I can understand it, and therefore I can shape it. Now, if I add more water or less water to it, or if I add water to different kind of sand, different kind of earth, sand, it can be sand is grainy, it's not clay. So different kinds. There, I cannot do anything with it because I don't know what to do with it. But that doesn't mean that if I add water to something like sand, it is not going to come out in a certain form. If we go to a desert, or if there's a sand, if there's sand somewhere, if we pour some water to it, they actually create a certain form. They create something like the Grand Canyon, all those things. They were created in that way. Man could not do anything with it, therefore, he's not able to comprehend it. But nature created itself. So, in that sense, when there is different levels of composition, when there are different levels of mixture of these five Panchamahabhutas, it may lead to a different form of existence. So, then when we are talking about the whole nature, that we are talking about complete existence, Samagra Brahmanda, at that point of time, we cannot restrict the creator into a certain form, because form is something that only I can understand, that is a human can understand. I've already mentioned this. Many reptiles do not understand in terms of shapes, they understand in terms of heat. So for them, it is Tejas Sayuga rather than what we see in shapes and forms. The guna that they are able to understand better is heat. So maybe they see it in terms of heat. They are thinking in terms of heat. So when we try to understand the creator, basically we're talking about the Brahman itself, but I'm saying creator because there is Brahma involved over here, so that let us not get confused with it. So when we are talking about that creator, he has existed in a certain form before my existence came about. That pre-form I am not able to validate or identify. I can only understand after my existence came about. So if my existence has come about and I'm able to understand it in a certain way, then I have to bring him down in that way itself. Understanding it, like for example, when I go to another country, I have to, and I don't know their language, I need a translator to tell me what they are trying to communicate, to bring it down to my knowledge. So whatever we know, like we understand the shape, forms, those kind of tattvas, then I have to bring down the creator also into that forms. Then when the question occurs, what kind of form? Because we cannot put him into a form, it is very symbolic. Then how am I supposed to do? Then that guna, I have to make it as general as possible so that that tattva is accepted by everyone. But I also have to make that person, that manifestation very close to me, because I am the one who's trying to comprehend it. So then we saw that the cosmos, the existence, the whole existence is in the nature of expansion. That is, it is in that nature where it is expanding, and due to that expansion only different life forms are being created. That is, the earth is created, because we cannot, as long as the earth stays, let us say that earth is one part of the moon, it got split, it cannot, moon or sun for that matter, it cannot start having life like us when it is very close, because there is no life on Mercury that we can come, at least we cannot go on Mercury, we cannot go on Venus. So it has to be earth, and it has to be at that particular distance where we can expand, we can exist. Therefore, that particular, it must have rolled out. That is, the sun and the earth must have, at some point of time, they are, the earth is revolving, and at some point of time, it gets into a certain distance where it is in that optimal state to give life to us. So that expansion is what we are trying to depict, the complete existence, that whole creation, through the form of Brahma. Brahma is actually from the root word of brah, which means to expand. So therefore, he is the expansive force, and because of that expansive force, creation is possible for us. Because if there is too much of pressure, if we come close together, like uh, there was this scientific question that if there was an asteroid that is coming towards it, there was too many talk about such things. So if this is Earth and there is one asteroid that is coming towards Earth like this, almost hitting it, why can't we use our modern technology, weapons, etc., like lasers and all those things, to destroy it, make it into pieces? Because if it is huge, if it comes and if it collides with Earth, then it causes extinction, like it did with respect to the dinosaurs and all that. Why can't we use our modern technology to shoot that through lasers and then destroy it? Then the forces of nature is such that even if we do that, due to the close by gravitational pull, those particles would again start to clump up together, and it might even come at a larger force, because the particles splitting have their own exertion of forces now. So in the same way, what happens is that when there is too much, when let us say the particles are all split, when they start coming close together, each of them will start exerting their own forces, and then will draw everything at a much greater pressure. So then what happens, whatever it may be, the optimal uh, conditions necessary, temperature, pressure, whatever that is required for our the existence that we know of to there be there, that will not be there, that will not happen. Therefore, it is required for us to expand to an extent where we are not completely out of that orbit, But to stay enough, like for example, when ISRO launched the Aditya L1 Aditya satellite, it was pointed, it was directed towards one point, L1 point. Now that L1 point is such that it is overlapping on the gravitational pull of the earth and the gravitational pull of the sun, so that when it comes to that L1 point, that Aditya satellite is not getting pulled towards earth due to earth's gravitational pull. It is not getting pulled towards sun because of sun's gravitational pull. It is stationary, the force is equal, balance, and therefore it is able to stay over there. That is the state that we are living in. That is that particular state where we are existing. And it is not common that, it is not so uncommon that this state has occurred only now. Many times it may have occurred, which means that many times creation like ours might have taken place. Obviously, what happens when I keep spinning this, it with due to that force, it starts to expand, because we know that the whole universe is expanding at a accelerating pace. So it starts to go. Today it is making one circle like this, and then it starts to go around much at a bigger path. So what happens at this point of time, where the earth, even now, if it is goes beyond a certain orbit, certain distance, then what happens is the life that is existing on earth will lose favor. That means that favorable conditions required to for us to exist, that will go away. Just a inch distance from the sun, if we go apart, like if we go a little far behind, let us say the distance at this point of time between the earth and the sun is around x. Even if some a 0 point something it increases, that x increases, the distance increases, then obviously the temperature on earth will change, which means all the life forms on earth will change. At least we will not be able to exist. So keeping this in mind, we need to understand there was that evolution where when there must have been a point of time where the earth was very close to sun, where we couldn't exist, where it came a little far, spinning, revolving. It reached a certain place where we could exist. Then it will start going again around and round, and it will reach a point where we cannot exist again. So we are only existing between that particular optimal temperature, optimal distance. So the reason why we are existing is because of this expansion. Without that, we cannot exist. Therefore, our ancients thought, okay, it is better to categorize the whole creation as the Brahman, as that life force, because there is a conscientious push towards this particular form of creation. It is not random. Had it been random, there need not be any order. Why should the logic be applied as in, okay, when there is revolution, then it slowly starts to go, that centrifugal force, whatever it comes. Why would they say that, okay, it goes like this, then it makes a bigger round. There need not be any logic. If we say it is random, it can go like this also. Something also it can be. If it is going like this, then there has to be an intentional force. That is the argument that we are saying, that there is an intention, there is a logic involved. So there has to be a thinking, the thought involved. So our existence is not accidental. It is intentional. That is the reason at this point we are existing. And the reason for that is Brahma. Now, Brahma, the nature of this, the deity, what we are doing, the deity must not have too much of existence. because it is said that the Brahma, we are limiting him to our existence. That is, our Brahma is limited to our existence. So there may have been many Brahmas. This famous story also is there in Bhagavatam where Chaturmukha Brahma, he comes to see Krishna, and Krishna is like, which Brahma are you? There are so many universes. So here Krishna is the total existence. Brahma is the creator of that one particular form of existence. Our Brahma, Chaturmukha Brahma. There are other forms of Brahma, there are other forms of existence. The one who created that form of existence is that Brahma. He is relevant to that particular thing. So now what happens? Now the question is, are these independent of each other? No, they are not independent of each other. How can they be independent of each other? If, for example, I am at this distance, fine. If, for example, I am at this distance from the sun and therefore I'm able to exist, then Earth at some point of time would have been this close also. It would still go a little more far also. So obviously the existence that existed somewhere in between, the life forms that existed at this point, let us say, somebody would have created that particular form of expansion, that we are denoting it through Brahma. Obviously he would have knowledge of this kind of creation. As the distance increases, as it goes a little far off, new form of existence has come about. Yes, but is it not a derivative of when they were this far off? Something would have been continued, because these are all the same forms of nature: heat, pressure, temperature, etc., etc. Same form of pressures, forces of nature are dealt over here in different proportions. So therefore what happens is, some knowledge from that previous form of existence has continued to our forms of existence. So we're talking about thousands of years ago. We say our yugas were this yuga is 4,32,000 something years, we say. So for so many years, let us be practical enough to understand. Obviously, the distance between the planet that is sustaining us and then that of the sun that is sustaining us may not be the same as what we are. So, but obviously, creation would have given rise to life to them also at some point of time. That we cannot understand that life. But today, we have been passed down a certain knowledge of that existence. Maybe there is a chance where the end of that particular creation, that particular life, may have passed on some information that is derivative of their existence to us also. So we, whatever is the, when we say apaurushaya to our Vedas, it is in fact said that our Brahma created our world using the knowledge from the Vedas, which is basically that when a particular existence is there and it has reached the end of its life and it gets destroyed, then all that it had created, all that will be reduced to atomic forms. And I've already said that the existence of data cannot be reduced. So it can come down to electromagnetic waves also. It can come down to atomic forms also. Now the same atoms are being used to construct some other form of life. Then obviously that particular, whatever is the data it had used, the traits will get passed on. The data will get passed on. So Brahma using the same data to create one more life. So that is the process. Even Brahma is not at that point. We are not saying that Brahma exists at the totality state. Totality state is just that expansion. But why the creation is happening is at individual state. Why the creation is happening at the individual state? Because the knowledge of that creation is being passed on to individual Brahmas. That is the reason for existence. So therefore, the previous Brahmanda that existed, maybe when that ended, then the nature of creation, nature of existence were passed on to a new force. That force, using the same elements, might have created us, and therefore we have relevance to the previous creation, previous universe. That is the nature of Brahma, what we are talking about. So we need to understand it in a more we need to bring in a lot of science to this, rather than making them deities and then keeping them foreheads and stopping them. We need to understand what is the meaning of these foreheads, what is the meaning of Brahma, why he is associated with creation, what is the nature of the deification, because that is the way to pass it on. I cannot explain this all these things without in scientific knowledge sense. How many of us actually read scientific journals to understand what a black hole is, or what are the what is happening on sun and etc etc. It is through our stories that we are actually able to pass on this knowledge. Therefore we have made him into a deity. Therefore we have made him into a certain form which is easier to remember, his nature, his attributes. So that is the nature of Brahma. So that particular this thing, deification is not to be framed with that image. It should be used as a derivative, it should be used as a metaphor, and it should be, we need to understand what is the Gudhartha of Brahma. So that maybe at some other point of time we can discuss. So we are discussing Brahma at this point of time. The concept of Brahma is basically the expansion of the primordial matter due to energy passage has led to creation of life. Therefore, we are attributing that as the primary function of Paramatma, Brahman, and therefore Brahma becomes the first um, manifested form of Brahman, Parabrahman. So Nirguna Brahman, first we don't have any gunas, but due to the action, resultant action, we are giving denotion, we are giving that symbolic representation of expansion and creation of life forms to as Brahma. So that is Brahma. स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः प्रतिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महीमहीषा गोब्राह्मणेभ्यो शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि।